Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cynthia the Audiobelle. At Expona this year, I met two young men that will be part of the future of Magnepan in a big way. The first young man is Mick, the services manager. I interviewed him in a separate video that was posted on the Absolute Sounds channel. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. In this video, I chat with Cory, the shipping manager at Magnepan. I actually met Cory for the first time at Rocky Mountain Audio Fest in 2019. His goal at the time was to become a speaker designer. I ran into him at Expona this year to find he now works at Magnepan. I know this video is a bit long, but it was initially over 2 hours that I got down to roughly 40 minutes of content that I felt I just couldn't cut out. The big question that has been on my mind is, who will carry on Jim Winey's legacy 10, 20 years down the road? And more importantly, will his vision of what he intended Magnepan to be remain? Or will the younger generation to carry the torch have a different perspective? This is an important topic that Cory and I covered throughout various parts of the video. Cory is the shipping manager at Magnepan and a huge audiophile. And he's only 32 years old. There's a really funny story on how he got hired on at Magnepan. And it all started with a cat.
I'd gotten a place with one of my best friends a few years ago, and he had this cat.
Oh no.
Yeah, his cat.
I feel like I know where this is going.
This cat was so big, I don't know how it could move. But she was so smart. She would come in at 3 a.m. and just walk right up to my .7s and just stare at them and looking back at me. I swear she knew.
Is she like threatening you or something?
She was just looking at me like meowing to see if I'd get up, and if I didn't move, she would just start clawing them.
It's like she knew you loved this speaker and
was
100%. Making threats.
100%. Then
so
the second I open them, she runs up.
Now,
well, I've been gone from there for a few years now, for a couple years, 3 or 4 years now, and he actually had to get rid of her because she was getting too bad.
Oh my!
So I don't live with that buddy anymore. I got my own place, but so I figured I would change the fabric on them, and so I called Magnepan up at the time, and I talked to a man named Ken. Told him I needed some fabric because I was going to replace the fabric and sell them to a buddy of mine. I go up there to get fabric, and like a lot of Magnepan customers, talked about all my systems I've had, and I'm a huge Magnepan fan.
Wait, you just drove up to Magnepan to get replacement fabric?
Well, I live now 45 minutes away. And I'd called up.
That's cool.
And asked to get fabric because I knew there was no way I was going to sell them with ripped open fabric. And I'd already replaced fabric in the past. I got the price of the fabric, so that's perfectly cool. Went up to get just 2 new fabric socks, and got to talking like most Magnepan fans do, or customers, and I have this amp, this system, and here's my history and all the products I've owned, and I've actually. During COVID, I actually built planars just for fun in my garage and learned all about them. And so I was a huge Magnepan and planar fan, and had gone up there to get fabric. Long story short, Ken had offered me a job, and I was thinking about it, considering at one point I'm making really good money doing construction and remodeling houses, and here's an opportunity to work at my favorite speaker company that's pretty much my passion, my hobby, and even if it's just to learn how they're made and the construction of them and all the little tips and secrets, and eventually passion won, and I called them like a day or 2 later, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna put my 2 weeks notice in. It might have even actually been before I left that day. Ken will probably have a better memory of this. He's got a great memory.
Wait, rewind for a second.
Yeah.
So you took a pay cut to go follow your dream.
Yeah, I took a sizable pay cut. Yeah, I took a sizable pay cut. I figured the knowledge, if anything, is worth a lot. I always wanted to, and I was like, let's give it a shot. Told my
That
boss the
takes a lot
next
of
day or
guts.
two. Oh, trust me, I battled it pretty hard for a couple of days, and then eventually, I decided to tell my boss, yeah, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna go work at a company I love, and I've been there ever since.
So when was this? Like, how long ago?
God, Ken would have the better number. I believe a year and
It
a
was
few months,
definitely
a
after
year and
we
a half.
met.
Yeah, because we met in Rocky Mountain at Rocky Mountain Audio Fest. What,
Yeah,
5 years ago?
2019.
4 years ago. Okay, I went from someone who had never been on a plane until I was 30, or sorry, 27, 26,
How
and
old are
now I've
you
been on a
now?
plane. 32,
32? Okay.
and I've been on a plane more times than I can even count. It's all just happened in a really short time.
It's like a sense of
But
freedom in a way, isn't it?
oh, for sure. Thankfully, Exponent, we drove there. Me, Mick, and Ken.
Yeah,
We just took a move in that
you guys weren't that
normally to
far
all these
away
shows I fly.
either.
5.5 hours, not too far.
Yeah, that's not too bad at
Mini,
all.
Minneapolis to Chicago is about a 5.5 hour drive, without stopping, of course.
So how was it being in the car with those guys for 5.5 hours?
You know, there was times I didn't think I'd make it. No, I'm kidding. It was great. I love Ken and Mick. They're fun.
I could
It's
see you
and
guys just
what
cutting up in the car the entire time,
man,
cracking jokes and stuff.
I'll tell you one thing. I've worked many jobs in my life, and there's something to be said about a job where it legitimately feels like you're hanging out with family.
Mhm.
There's not I can't think of any other job I've really ever had where it wasn't where there weren't days where I was just, work today. I gotta wake up. I mean, I've completely
Yeah.
changed everything. I took a 35 to 40% pay cut. I was making good money driving from 10 minutes a day to 45 each way. Yeah, I drive 45 minutes each way in a V8 Hemi that does not get very good gas mileage.
Whoa.
Probably like 17, 18, 19. Pretty
But
bad.
it has good car audio, so that makes the
Oh, it's
trip a little
fantastic.
better.
Oh, it's fantastic. I have a pretty good custom hi-fi setup. I did custom A-pillars with ribbon tweeters and 4-inch mid-range and suede uh, A-pillars that are fiberglass.
Nerd.
9-inch Satori mid bass in the kick panels, which have a ton of air volume, and a 16-inch Image Dynamics ID Max with subwoofer, Moscone DSP, Zapco amps. So a full-blown hi-fi setup in the car, and it's fantastic.
So you get to listen to audio for 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back, and then you get to listen to audio when you're there, I presume, sometimes.
Uh, Sometimes Wendell will have something going on in the sound room, and hey Cory, come check this out. I guess I'll explain the kind of hierarchy. You have Mark Winey, he's the owner,
Right.
great guy. He's the son of Jim Winey, the
Mm-hmm.
original Magnepan creator. And then you have Ken, which is the production manager, my boss. I'm the shipping manager. Ken's son, who's about my age, 30, 31, I should probably remember. He is Ken's son, who is the service manager. And then you have
Wait, who
a
is that
bunch of
again?
Ken, or sorry, so you
No,
have Ken,
who?
who's the product manager, and his son is Mick Booker. So Ken
Wait,
Booker is the
who's Mick?
Ask Mick. Is that what we're getting at?
No, I said
Is
who's
that what we're
Mick?
getting? Ken is the production manager. Mick is the service manager.
Mhm.
Bill, aka William Kurtz, is the Mick's uh, service employee. He also does the repairs on a lot of speakers that people send in, whether your 30-year-old foil has or wire has come off and needs to be redone, or you have a mylar slip or damage, or that. Mick and Bill are the ones that do all the service and repair. So there's times where we do listen to music and we get together, and whether it's a speaker testing or a new product Wendell's working on or whatever it may be.
Another
So there's,
contraption.
sometimes now some of us listen, like Ray, he's he's one of the best people there. He will jam out on what he has radio in the back, radio in his work area, a radio wherever he goes. He's always jamming out to some
He just walks around
blues
with a
or
boombox.
he hasn't walked around with the boombox, but he's got a boombox in every little area basically. You haven't been to Magnepan, right?
No,
You haven't
not
been there
yet.
yet?
I'm
And
going
you're planning.
because
Yeah, that's right. You
after
are
I put
planning on
out
coming
this
out, aren't you?
video, that I did with Mick, which I totally just uh trash talk the bass on the 3/7s that you guys were showing at the show. And he's
How
like,
could you?
okay, you can put the video out, but I just asked that you, when you come at the end of the month, because I'm coming at what is it, like the end of May, I think?
Right.
Yeah, the end of May, I'll be coming to see the factory and meet everybody there. But he's like,
You
I
must
just
be
asked.
excited.
I'm so stoked. Like finally get to go
We'll
to the
show your
motherland of
grandpa.
my speakers.
That's how I felt the first time, and I was like, "Wow, I live 30 minutes away from 40 at the time 30 minutes, but now it's 45." So was it end? You said end of May?
Yeah, at the end of May. And Ken was like, uh, that's fine what you said about the bass, but just let me change your mind when you get here. I'm gonna put you in a room with some of these speakers, and you're gonna hear them in an okay room where they can go down to
Yeah.
40 hertz. And I said okay, and then I'll do another video on it, I guess.
When we do sound testing, we actually RTA, real time analyze each speaker, and we can see on a graph how loud the SPL level of each frequency.
Uh huh.
And if I remember right, the 3.7s play easily pretty well down to 40. I
That's
think a
what he
lot of
was telling
people,
me.
but yeah, we'll play them in the sound room at Magnepan, which is it sounds great in there.
I'm
I've heard
excited.
30s, timpanis. I've heard the LRS Plus with the dipole woofers, which was phenomenal. Um, you'll hear them in the right setting. So, what do you currently have at home? What do you
I
own?
have I have the 3.7 eyes. I have the 1.7 eyes, and then the regular LRS,
Uh, oh, so not the Plus.
not the plus. What's the
Have you ever had a
secret, by the
chance
way?
to? We actually have this wizard that comes in and blesses each and every LRS Plus. There's a secret. There's things I can't disclose. I
Uh
know you wish I could.
huh.
If someone else is willing to disclose that, I definitely am not going to be that guy and get in trouble for it.
With the
But
80-year-old bald man that
you
works
bring the
there.
window.
Of course.
um, no, I will say this though: the LRS Plus is a better driver.
Okay.
The diaphragm, the mylar,
Mhm.
the driver assembly that moves, the mylar and foil and everything is noticeably lighter, and so a lot of people will make comments about how it's got more high end or sparkle or inherently when you reduce the driver mass you get better top end, and that's about as far as I'll say.
Okay, your goal when we first met at Rocky Mountain was to become a speaker designer. How far have you come with that goal since working at Magnepan, since we've met? How is it helping you get closer to that goal? And or are you even still wanting to do that?
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons I started working at Magman too, is I really wanted to learn how all the like. It's easy to be like, oh, I could build a magnetic planar speaker that sounds good, but when you start getting into it, it's okay. Well, how thick a metal do you use? How thick a perforated metal? Do you want it flexible or do you want it solid? What glue do you use to stick the bordering down?
Mhm.
Is it epoxy? Is it contact cement? Is it a glue? Or is it double sided tape? Is it well, how do you stick the mylar to it? Is it glue? Is it well, how do you what foil? Like what? There's so many things that you actually have to learn, and I figured what better way than to actually build Magnepans. And originally that was the goal to maybe do my own thing, just because I love the hobby so much, and I love the planar magnetic style so much, and I started working at Magnepan, and I just grown to love the company so much, and got to scratch that itch because before I was shipping manager, I did most of I did a lot of the different parts. Like I was stretching Mylar for a few months. I was marrying the panels for a few months. I was building and routering the frames. I've done a lot. The shipping part of it, I've done a lot. Pretty much most of the sections. The only thing I haven't done is foil wiring. I think that's one of the only ones I haven't done. Without saying too much, we've had some ideas, and there's a lot of really good ideas we're thinking of, and kind of in the works of talking about. And I don't want to say too much before it gets there, but
Well, don't say too much.
Yeah, ideally, that would be where I would really like to be. I mean, I love being shipping manager. It's super
Making
fun.
the ideas.
Yeah, I like to. It'd be fun to build and design or modify current models.
Is there an idea that you have that you can share that isn't something they have? Something that you've always wanted to do?
One of the obvious things we could do is neodymium magnets.
And that's what the Diptyque
Now, there's a
had.
reason. Yeah, Diptyque uses it on their tweeter and mid-range.
Okay.
Their base panels didn't have it. Alexx did use all neodymium. But the problem with neodymiums is when you try to push them together, they want to repel. So when you have them all facing north, they don't want to sit together nicely. They have you.
Oh.
So that's something. But more importantly, the cost. I feel confident enough to say that Magnepan has always been really about value. I mean, there's a lot of companies that will take off-the-shelf Parts Express drivers and put them in a enclosure that was designed from an app or a calculator online, and they'll just put a paint job on it, $100 driver, $500 enclosure and crossover and paint, and they'll put a $20,000 price tag on it. It's kind of disingenuous to up price something to that degree. Neodymium magnets are expensive. They're very expensive when you think about how many you need. And so if I'm just talking from my own opinion on ways to improve any magnetic planar, you definitely want to use neodymium. If the price allows it, you want to use neodymium because the field is so much stronger that when you have a mylar traveling in that field, it's more controlled than if it was a weaker magnet. So not only can the mylar travel further in the magnetic field, while it's in that magnetic field, it's a stronger field and therefore has more control. So it's just common sense that a neodymium magnet is a much better, if price wasn't a factor, it is a better solution to the magnetic field. Because it can travel further, it means you can have more excursion. So your base response for any speaker is determined by the surface area moving, how far it's moving. And so by having neodymium magnets, you can allow for not only a further travel, because the field doesn't die off at a further distance compared to regular magnets. So you have lower distortion, further travel, and because the magnetic force is so strong at any given point compared to a regular magnet, your efficiency goes up. So instead of needing 100, 200, 300 watts to get full value, you can get by with a lot less. There's reasons why Alexx can run on now granted, they start at 85 grand, so there's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
But if I'm being fair, the reason why they can play on 20, 30 watt tube amps on the sides of a 3.7 or 20.7 is because of the neodymiums. But that is a very high price tag. I mean, that's thousands of dollars in magnets. You're going to pay for those magnets. So there's always things when you ask me what improvements and ideas I have. An all neodymium push-pull driver, tweeter mid-range bass would definitely be something I would push for.
I think that'd be super cool. it would definitely come into question, like, what's the price tag going to be? When are you guys going to make Magnepan walls?
Magnepan walls?
Yeah, I mean, you just eventually you can't get enough of a soundstage
Oh,
eventually.
you mean like a full-blown wall of Magnepan?
Yeah, it was a joke
Planar.
that Mick made when we were on that prank with Wendell, having him listen to the Diptychs. He was like, "Well, next we're just gonna put them in the walls."
There was a time where they actually, at Magnepan, were testing out. Jim Winey, I believe, was the one testing out mounting a Magnepan to the wall of the house and having it breathe into, having the back of the Mylar, the back of the Magnepan breathing into the wall, or
Uh-huh.
another room altogether. So that way it had no interaction with the back, because that's one of the challenges. So a sealed speaker, the front wave comes off the speaker, the back wave is
Right, they have
encapsulated.
to have space behind them.
Yeah, and so so the way speaker works is it plays forward, backwards, and then rest. So there's a front wave and it reversed out of polarity rear wave. Part of that the goal is to capture that, like in a sealed enclosure, capture that rear wave so it doesn't come out and affect the front wave, and how much air volume is in there kind of acts as a spring. In a ported enclosure, you're allowing that rear wave to come out and match up to the front wave, but you want it to be time delayed so that way they're working in phase. If the back wave, if you mess up designing the port and it's out of polarity, you may have the waves fighting against each other. So a sealed enclosure would be like a 0 dB gain because you're just blocking the wave off. A ported enclosure would be like a 3 decibel gain because you're adding that back wave, but you're doing it strategically so that way it arrives and lines up with that front wave, so it's louder. But
Yeah,
you left
I'm learning a lot about that right now, because you actually, with your DIY stuff, you gave Jeremy the bug to go and do his own DIY stuff. And now he's making an open Baffle speaker.
for the house or the car.
For the house.
I don't know if I sent you any pictures, but I 3D printed different speakers. Oh yeah, the Wilsons I built.
There's the Wilsons.
Yeah, those are clones of Wilson Alexx. It was my dad had passed away a few years ago, and I just figured it was a good way to kind of direct my attention into, and for a lot of men, losing your dad is pretty rough, but especially when it was kind of unexpected. But long story short, I decided to build those Wilson Alexes because I was obsessed with how they look. I just had the itch for them. Didn't have 120 grand to drop on some Wilson Alexes, so I just figured I'd build them and use pictures to measure them with a caliper, and it was painstaking, but now I'm ready to paint them. So they're kind of a summer project.
What color are you going to paint them?
I think silver. The Wilson silver looks probably the best in my opinion.
That would look sharp.
Yeah, it would.
These look so cool.
Well, thank you. You know, it's funny now. They came out with the new ones, and they have. You see where the two mid range, the upper mid range, and the tweeter box are. The arms that hold them. They came with a new model that has this like cutout inside of them, like it's more like skeletonized, and so I'm debating figuring out the measurements on those and redoing them, and all you gotta do is cut out from the wings or whatever you want to call them.
Oh, kind of like, let's make it this.
You see how they're more open? Yeah, there you go.
Like that. Ooh, the orange looks really
Yeah, the
sharp
orange
looking.
does look good. Orange is my least favorite color, but it does look good.
Yeah, I'm not that into orange, but stuff like a Jeep Gladiator I thought looked really good in orange.
Yeah, it looks like good. Yeah, see, that one's got the new sides, which I think I like more. And so I'm gonna.
You should do it then.
I'm gonna update them. Yeah.
That should be too difficult.
It's pretty crazy how close they are, though. It was a lot. It was a lot of work.
Wendell and
Of course.
Galena are taking us on a canoe packing excursion in the Boundary Waters.
That's right.
What?
That's right.
What's so funny?
Just you and the great outdoors, Wendell and Galena. That should be fun.
Yep. Yeah, we'll see
I
how.
will say Galena is a riot. She's
Oh,
fun.
she's so funny.
She is a total sweetheart. And then Wendell too is also a great guy. He I know he thinks very highly of you as well.
Yeah,
So you guys will have a blast.
he and
What exactly
Galena,
play?
they've become like my grandparents.
Yeah, that's what
So
you
we always
said.
joke about that. You have to carry the canoe, and I'm not sure how that's gonna go yet. So you have to do some sort of portages where you're.
with Jeremy carrying a canoe.
Oh, it's gonna be Jeremy carrying the canoe. That's for
And
sure.
Wendell
I'm
and
not carrying it.
Although I've seen don't get it twisted. Wendell is strong. He's a strong individual. He'll probably carry each one handed, just trotting through the woods.
Okay, Shia LaBeouf over there.
Wendell, don't get it fooled. Wendell is a Superman. He's very strong.
Well, what I'm most interested in is to see how irritable he actually is, out in the wild, and to capture it on camera.
Wendell's got very good temperament. I don't think I've ever seen him even remotely mad in any way.
But when he gets flustered,
Well,
it's kind of funny.
Yeah, he'll get flustered if you ask him a technical question. The only way I could describe it is he'll have multiple sentences he wants to say, but they're fighting for first place, and so he'll
Yes, I know.
he'll get flustered in that regard.
His brain just can't order the thoughts because he's going 90 miles an hour in his head.
Yeah, he's a smart individual. So
one question I really, really want to make sure I get in here. You and Mick are the young blood of Magnepan. What is your vision? Like, what do you see going forward? And are you thinking that you're wanting to eventually, like, I don't know, continue on the legacy of what Jim Winey's kind of put in everybody's hands over there? Or what are your thoughts?
first off, I think it would be an absolute honor to continue that legacy. I've heard a lot from a lot of people that it's nice to see younger people in the industry. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a show and a guy sitting next to me in a room will be like, it really is nice to see younger people here. And so it's always nice and refreshing to hear people comment towards me and say, it's really nice to have younger people in. What we need is you guys. The audio industry is known for generally older individuals, people who are retired, 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
There's not very many
old fat men.
She said it, not me. She said it, not me.
I have no qualms of saying it.
All you audiophiles out there are perfect fit specimens. What happens in 20, 30 years if we don't get younger people into the industry, into the hobby, and into speakers and hi-fi audio in general? What happens when they're all gone? That's a huge industry with lots of potential just dying off. I can't even imagine that. Can you imagine if all these companies, like when you go to Expona, look at all the people that are designing the speakers and owning the companies, they're generally a little bit up there in age. And if we don't get younger people involved, I don't know. If we don't have people to replace people as they get older, it's just going to die off. And that seems really unfortunate and sad. My hope is that at least at the bare minimum, the older generation that are audiophiles, their kids get into it, or the speakers passed out of them, or their dads or grandpa's so into it that he passes down. You got to have a continuation of generations. And it's slightly concerning that the standard age, the average age is probably 70, 60. It'd be nice to shift that down a little bit. So it'd be
Yeah, my YouTube analytics show that there's not anybody under the age 35 watching my videos. So
perfect example. I mean, if your average audiophile setup is 10K or 5K, how many 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds do you know that have the money to spend that? And that's even just for an entry-level system, unless it's Magnepan, and you're getting a hell of a deal. But I mean, I can't tell you how many books
he's
sell for
upselling
20K.
over here.
I think a lot of audiophiles are just now getting into social media. I think all these big YouTube channels like Jay's Audio, Steve Guttenberg, and Thomas and Stereo, and Audio Excellence, and OCD Hi-Fi Guy, Mikey, having all this social media presence and the YouTube or the Facebook user groups really helps to kind of spread awareness and get people into the industry. Like I started in car audio. If you can get people from car audio into home audio, if it worked for me, it can work for others. So we just need to figure out how to get a younger generation of people in the industry. Otherwise, it will just fizzle and die.
But as one of the younger people at Magnepan, what are you going to do to carry on Jim's legacy?
I think one of the biggest things is social media, being more out there and in the open. I think a lot of people would love to have audio systems and hi-fi systems in their house or apartment or car or wherever, but they just don't think about it. They don't know about it. They don't know what there is. They don't. I think a lot of people just don't know how enjoyable it is. A lot of people are so happy with their TV speakers or their computer, their $30 computer speakers, that they don't even realize how good it can get and how enjoyable it can be. And if all you see is an older crowd partaking and there's no social media, and the only way you're going to hear about it is by somehow maybe going into Best Buy and Magnolia and looking at cool speakers and being convinced to buy or talked into buy a set of speakers and want to upgrade and somehow shift into there, or you, like me, you start in car audio. There's not many avenues to get into it. So I think we would benefit greatly by having more social media presence, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, good prices like we're doing, so that way people can actually afford it.
I mean, like his vision, though, he's like, I'm just thinking about how, I guess he came to terms with wanting to make the speaker in the first place and what went through his head, I guess, to make a speaker out of magnets and all of this crazy stuff. And then his vision on what it was going to sound like and what he heard. How are you going to carry that on and make sure that that doesn't die? I guess is more so my question.
Well, so Jim left a lot. I mean, there are binders and binders and binders. I mean, an insane amount of material on all his research he did. We have a lot of the products. When you come visit, maybe we'll show you one of the secret
that'd
rooms.
Be cool. I'd love to see it.
You would love it. There's a bunch of old designs and prototypes. You can kind of see all the things he did and where his head was at. He's still alive. He's up there in age, and his memory is hit or miss a lot of days. But he's got Steve Winey and Mark Winey that are. Steve's retired and he's not. He pops in and out, but Mark is the owner of the company, and that's his son. So it's easy. We have Mark. We have all his documents, all of Jim's binders of documentations and ideas and notes, and it's hard to say where it'll end up being, but it's easy to see where you should go. There's so many ways we can change the looks, the improvements we can make on sound quality. It's just about getting it to the customer for the right price. I think we're going to carry on his name pretty well. I think we're in good hands.
Too. I know Magnepan is in good hands with you too. you and
Thank
Mick. I
Thank
just
you.
appreciate y'all's passion and your drive and the love that you have for the company and the speakers, and it's a belief system. You guys believe in the product, and you believe in the reactions the product has given people and the
Oh yeah,
emotions it's driven out of people. So
it, it's so funny the
that's the
amount
vibe
of
I get
people.
from you guys.
Yeah, and that's the kind of vibe we want to give too. I can't tell you how many people will call in for parts, or when they come to pick up a speaker they just bought, or getting back the one they sent in for service and they live in Minnesota, or people that just call in from all over the world, and they if they had the time, they would spend hours on the phone with. If you had the time, they would spend hours with you on the phone, going over every amp they had, how they got their first Magnepan, how their dad used to play Led Zeppelin in the '70s, and it got passed on to them. They forgot they had it in the attic. It's almost like the it's almost like a cult in a way of people that are just so diehard Magnepan, and I love it. But then, ironically, we just got back from Expona. We went to Expona. Hudson's like, "Hey, I got this customer with 20.7s. Ironically, again, 20.7s. He's like, he doesn't know how to set them up. He's an older gentleman, and he would it would mean the world to him if you guys could come out and help him set up his 20.7s."
Aw.
And of course, we went out last time and did some 20.7s and listened to them for a customer and made his day. We should do it again. So we drove 30 minutes away after, it was like a Friday night after the show, and went to this gentleman's house. And I believe he was in like his late 70s, and he was a wonderful guy. We set up his 20s and got them positioned and set up correctly. And he was like, "This is a dream. I can't even believe this is real." Like, he was ecstatic seeing a man in his age just giddy like a 15-year-old was. It feels really good.
That's
And so
adorable.
now, yeah, so now we've kind of thought about it and joked about it. We're like, every time we go to a show or go on a state, we should make it a thing where we go to a customer's house and just make their day, just hang out and hear their system.
Aw.
It's kind of like if
Oh,
you
I
own.
love that idea.
It sounds like a good, wholesome idea. I know if it was me back before I worked at Magnepan, I would have been ecstatic to have people that ran the place come to my house and hear my Magnepans. It would have been a good time, and so
Yeah,
that's going to be a tradition we try to carry on if possible.
and that's what I want these people to know about you, is that I really feel like that empathetic kind of, you're able to put yourself in the customer's shoes. You've been there before, and just feeling that way is
Absolutely,
going to go a long way for you guys. And
absolutely,
there's just not customer service anymore, and there's not, especially customer service with young people these days.
right. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's headed in a good direction. I mean, we just got to get more younger people in. I think a
Just
lot of.
keep doing what you're doing. You have young people come listen, like you have friends that are around the same age that come listen to stuff, or
Oh, absolutely. All my buddies have all heard my Magnepans throughout the years, and they all love them. And a few of them have actually become audiophiles. So it's just about awareness.
good.
A lot of people just don't. You just don't know what you're missing. If you don't know, then you don't know. So if you're used to listening to your TVs with the little oval, 4-inch oval speakers that are paper firing into the wall, if you're fine
That's
with
all you've
that,
ever heard.
that's all you've ever heard. But once you've heard it set up correctly, there's no going back. I mean,
Good. Well, you
I even
even
turned
heard
an
what?
audiophile. When I first met my girlfriend, I turned her into an audiophile, and now she loves Magnepans and audio just as much as me. Even the Polks sound phenomenal. And there was one day where I had changed something and they weren't I didn't plug them back in. And while I was at work that day that she had off, she was like, "The TV sounds funny. I don't like it." And I'm like, "Oh, I forgot to plug the amp back in or something. I can't remember what it was." But she's like, "You spoiled me. I can't go back to regular audio now. it just sounds like crap. When you've heard it good, you can't go back. And so that's what's next for the industry, is getting younger people to realize what they're missing. That should be the goal.
Well, I love that. And just keep spreading the gospel and planting them seeds, you know?
Absolutely.
Like your girlfriend, I mean, being that she's a woman and she's really into it and not just tagging along for the ride, that's
Right.
really something.
Exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cory Curtis, shipping manager at Magnepan, and the future generation of Magnepan.